I know you guys have been waiting for this for a long time. I hope it was worth the wait. The last 3 or so reviews have been kinda meh. I wasn't really passionate about them, I didn't have anything interesting to say. Now I'm gonna sink my teeth into something that I'm very, very passionate about. Passionate about hating. My brother loves this game, and when he came down to visit, he bullied me into playing it. I died within what felt like seconds of starting. Eventually I started to get the hang of it, but I never got good at it. There are people on YouTube who will lie to you, claiming it to be one of the ever-elusive hidden gems of the system. Winback is not a hidden gem. Winback is a terrible game. A lot of the games I don't recommend because of indifference or a handful of grievances. Winback is a game that I genuinely hate. This section includes spoilers, so skip to this timecode if you wish to avoid them. A terrorist organization known as the Crying Lions takes control of a facility which uses the Gulf system to control an orbital satellite capable of firing a laser, which is totally not like GoldenEye. The Crying Lions are advocates for a fictional country known as Sarkozia. The Secretary of Defense sends out the Special Covert Action Team. Yes, the abbreviation is SCAT. I don't know why that's a thing for Japanese people to name their things SCAT all the time. And their objective is to win back the facility. As the SCAT team deploys to the Gulf system, their helicopter experiences engine failure. The members have to jump out of the burning helicopter, and Jean-Luc barely escapes. Their leader, Daredevil Dan, fails to get out of the helicopter, and it explodes. Jean-Luc proceeds to work his way through the facility and meets up with the various SCAT members who all meet their untimely doom, except for that nerd Keith. You murder a small army of grunts and a few higher-ups of the Crying Lions organization, and after what feels like days, you finally make it to the Gulf system control room. Since I was fast, and I use that term loosely, I actually got the good ending. The good ending plays out differently. Cecil, who is second in command of the Crying Lions, executes the leader of the Crying Lions, Kenneth. Cecil has very different motives than Kenneth, and he plans to use the Gulf system to hold various targets in the USA hostage unless they pay him loads of money. Daredevil Dan actually wasn't killed in the helicopter crash and was secretly working with the Crying Lions the whole time! Dan reveals that he is actually from Sarkozia, and Kenneth was his brother and they were separated during the war. He is also revealed to be the one who killed several of your team members throughout the course of the game. Then Cecil comes back to fight you, and Jean-Luc tactically dodges lasers and shoots him a million times with a tactically placed machine gun emplacement. Tactically. The mission was a success, and even though your entire team was killed outside of Jean-Luc, Lisa, and that nerd Keith. Just for fun, in the bad ending, Kenneth kills himself after he blows up the White House and the Pentagon, and Operation Winback is a colossal failure and you should feel bad about yourself. You know, there's actually not a lot of story there, so why the fuck does it take so long to do anything? It's basic. The good ending has a plot revelation that Dan was the bad guy the whole time. It would have been better if we saw Dan get out of the helicopter, I think. If Dan was actively working with your team throughout the game, it would have been better since everyone just assumes he's dead, and no one mentions him ever, so it's just like, I don't know, fucking stupid. Like, I mean, there's a part where Dan executes Tom by shooting him in the back of the head, and then Tom leaves a note that has the passcode. It's fucking stupid. The whole game is stupid. Don't play this game for the story. Don't play this game at all. Winback is a cover-based third-person shooter. The only real gameplay mechanics are shooting and cover. But Winback's cover system is terrible. I don't mean that you shouldn't use cover, because you have to. You absolutely have to. What I mean is when you press square to put your back against a wall or object, it's simply one of the worst things you can do. Sometimes it won't let you jump out from a certain side, or the least tactical slow jump out, which basically completely screws you and ensures you're gonna get hit. You have to use this on occasion, as it's the only way to reliably shoot around corners. For the most part, it's almost always better to avoid using the cover system if at all possible. Hiding behind boxes crouched but not snapped to the wall is better in almost every circumstance where you can. But like I said, you absolutely need to use the cover system frequently, and its inconsistencies lead to a lot of deaths. It is so easy to die in Winback that you need to wait in every single encounter for the enemies to stop shooting and put their guns down. If you don't, you're subject to getting killed incredibly easily. There are some things I would consider bullshit, like getting shot through walls you're covering behind. Damage is also incredibly inconsistent. If you get shot in the back, you're basically dead. and you can unexpectedly take a headshot which can also kill you almost instantly. You're forced to use auto-aim because aiming manually is incredibly clunky and you are liable to get shot while clumsily trying to get to your target. Unfortunately, like much of Winback, it is inconsistent and clunky. Auto-aim often doesn't go for the closest or most threatening targets, which can lead you to being forced to take down less desirable targets first, leaving more desirable ones until last. Auto-aim also hilariously has a very short range. If you aren't close enough, you simply won't snap to targets. This leads you to have to use the horrible manual aim for parts where enemies are really far away. This happens a lot in later levels as you're often in very long corridors with enemies on the other side where you need to manually aim to hit them. There isn't a memory for your crosshair either. You need to pop out of cover, manually aim very quickly every single time. If you're too fast to fire before Jean-Luc slowly pans to his targets, you'll straight up miss, and that's liable to get you shot. It's so bad.
Where's the trigger? Where is it? Where is it? Where's the trigger?
Winback doesn't even try to hide the fact that it has very blatant enemy spawn triggers. Crossing certain thresholds causes the next wave of enemies to spawn, and often you can see them pop in from out of nowhere. You can die very easily in Winback, and since checkpoints feel incredibly far between, you often end up in situations where you're replaying the same level over and over again. So much that you start to memorize things. My successful attempts at some levels make me look like I'm omniscient with when the enemies will come. That only came after probably dozens of attempts that ended in a colossal failure. Oddly enough, Winback was originally an N64 game and it was ported and enhanced on the PS2. The PS2 version is superior, I guess, because it includes a lot of hilarious voice acting, graphical upgrades, and probably gives you a bit more control with the extra analog stick for the atrocious manual aiming. I'm not familiar with the N64 version. It's possible that the Nintendo 64 version is actually better and easier and just a better game, but I have no way or desire to judge that at this time. Koei released this as a budget title, and it shows. It feels dated, and it doesn't look particularly good even for being released at the time it was. It feels like an arcade game, but in the worst ways possible. It's also very akin to something like Time Crisis at times, and I don't mean that in a good way. I mean that in the worst possible way, because Time Crisis is an awesome game. The graphics for hits, for headshots, have that very arcadey look to them. I don't know. I don't have anything really good to say about it otherwise. Winback has a few tracks and they get replayed constantly. Here's a brief sampling of what I'm talking about. Those are the 4 most prominent tracks. Yes, the death track is one of the most prominent tracks you'll hear throughout the game. The game does try to switch it up every so often. When you get shot, sometimes it'll swap the tunes, and that's just stupid. And they're all very grating on your nerves after a while because you hear them so many times. Where do I even begin to talk about the difficulty here? Winback is very clunky, and there are a lot of deaths simply because of that. While we were playing, my brother looked up an article. It said Winback was ranked something like the 67th hardest game on the PS2. I believe it wholeheartedly. It's not impossible, as clearly I beat it. It may not really be truly hard, as you can do what I call the meat grinder technique, which is just grind attempts until you get one that finally sticks. And that's how I beat a lot of Winback. A huge amount of the game mechanics and nuances are definitely frustrating. You can get what feels like 100 to 0s. Getting shot in the back is basically a minimum 50, if not 75% of your health gone. Health kits are rare, and even then, they only restore 50% of your health. Your checkpoints are inconsistent. Sometimes they're close together, other times they can be very far apart. Once you do reach a checkpoint, you had better hope that you did well, because if you get there with 10% health, you're gonna have a hell of a time in the next section. Checkpoints restore you to literally when you hit the checkpoint. If you had 10% health, there you go. You're coming back with 10% health. You don't get an HP restore or your magazines reloaded. You're exactly as you were stepping into the checkpoint. I had parts where I had to beat bosses without getting hit because I got to them with very low health. If I wanted another attempt at that boss with more health, I'd have to replay the level over again, and that was something I was just not willing to do. So I grinded attempts. It was annoying, but it was significantly less annoying than redoing the whole level again. There's a section on the roof where you had to move through like 6 lasers that move up and down. You have a very small timing window to get through these, and they are all a one-hit kill if they hit you. My brother and I took probably 45 minutes worth of attempts at this part before I finally managed to get through it. As we were grinding attempts, my brother was reading forums to find that many people were having the same issues with that exact part. It just feels like someone didn't playtest it. The biggest slap in the face is that if you take too long, enemies come and turn the laser blocking the door back on, and you have to go back through the 2 or 3 lasers you went through and repeat the process. That is horrible. Horrible! The issue is that the timing is incredibly precise. You can very easily get killed if you're even slightly off. We were reading that you needed to have the handgun equipped because it makes you slightly lower to the ground and a slew of other garbage tricks. Again, it feels like they just neglected to playtest the damn thing. That stage is the first of many incredibly difficult parts, and it honestly looks like a joke compared to some of the later stages. And you know what? There are more sections with lasers, but they seemed a lot easier and more forgiving. There's another series of moving lasers around level 27, and a section where you have to move in the path of a laser to shoot another laser to deactivate it. That part is not nearly as hard as this section, but it's still very annoying. I could make a joke here and say the hardest part was the whole game, but I won't. Let's go over a few parts that I thought were incredibly badly designed though. Stage 20 I struggled with. I did it over 2 sessions. I did 45 minutes on one attempt and 30 on the next. I'm gonna play the entire successful attempt with commentary to give you an idea of how bullshit it can be. After so many attempts, you get a feel of what you need to do. The first part of the stage, fine. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. It's the second part that's really annoying. We're gonna start from the checkpoint. You can just ignore this guy because you run down there and you blow up the box and you kill all 3 dudes. Once you get near the moving crate, 3 more guys pop up and you need to take them out. After that, once you go under the moving crate, another 3 guys spawn. You immediately get back and you snipe the guy above, wait for the guy with the shotgun to expose himself, or if you're lucky, you get crushed by the box. Then you run back up the stairs and snipe the guy from above so he doesn't one-hit kill you from behind with his shotgun. Then the next wave is the same thing. Once you approach the moving crates, 3 more guys spawn. Snipe the one guy above. I found running back up the stairs, are you noticing a trend? And hiding behind the box to snipe them to be far more effective. Once the guy on the left is dead, run back down and kill the other guy. There's some ammo and a health kit you can pick up on the right side. The next enemy spawn is bullshit. You have to go through the left moving crate and take out the shotgun guy because he will one-hit kill you if he shoots you in the back. This feels largely luck-based because you can't see either of them while moving up. Then you have to take out the remaining 4 which you need to snipe, and the level is finally over after an hour and a half of bullshit attempts. I won't even go over later stages like 27, 28, and 29 since I'd like the video to be less than an hour long. Those stages were complete bullshit and I hated every single second of them. Winback Covert Operations is long. Really, really long. The worst part about that is that you're constantly backtracking through the same areas. The first half of the game, the levels all take place in one section of the facility. Then the second half of the game takes place in another facility. Levels are in mostly very small areas, but they have this horrendous formula. It goes like this. You fight your way through an area only to find a locked door or some kind of obstruction like a laser. Then you have to unlock something that was blocking you from going the long way around, like shooting a laser, finding a key, or using a computer console. Then you backtrack along the original path and you go through the door that you opened. Then from there, you unlock the original obstruction and you can finally proceed through the rest of the level. So back in like 2007, my friends and I were going to make a mod for Half-Life 2 called A Very Zombie Christmas. Here's the ModDB page. And we had the idea that you had to climb an escalator but the power was out and some guy on the second level told you, "It doesn't work! You have to go around!" And the main character, who was this German guy, would just say, "Escalators, just robot stairs." Then you would have to go around anyways. Every single stage in Winback feels like that stupid gag we were going to put in our stupid mod that never got anywhere. You're also fighting enemies the whole way there and back again, which makes it super long and frustrating. Checkpoints feel rare. The final stages increase dramatically in length, and they also ramp up the difficulty severely. This means you're constantly dying and restarting at these checkpoints which feel miles apart, making you replay the same sections over and over. I live streamed the final 2 levels so my friends could enjoy my suffering. One of my friends left to go get groceries and I still hadn't finished the level by the time he got back, and he took his sweet time. My final kill count in Winback was in the thousands. My clear time was 15 hours real time and 5 in-game time. So for every successful hour of in-game time, I spent at least 2 more real-time hours failing and repeating the same sections. Levels are very inconsistent in length. Some levels are a few minutes or a single boss fight, then there are other levels that have multiple sections and include a boss fight. The level before the final boss took me something absurd like 2 hours to get through because it's insanely long and the amount of attempts I needed to reach the checkpoints was absurd. There needed to be consistency in the length of the levels. They should have absolutely erred towards the shorter end because long levels really showcase the problems with Winback. The final few levels could easily have been chopped up into 2 or 3 individual levels. There is no excuse for making them that long. If you're gonna make bosses their own stage, do it for every single boss. There are boss fights that take place in the middle of a level, which makes them feel out of nowhere and can make them significantly harder if you get there with low health, like I said. That's a special kind of slap in your face. There are a few like that, and it's baffling to me why that is the way it is. To my shock and awe, I actually got the good ending, which requires reaching, I think, level 27 in under a certain amount of time. That shocked me because I felt like I was crawling through the game. The best part is you get extra content for going fast. I think you fight 3 total extra boss fights as a reward for completing the game quickly. To my horror, I managed to get the good ending and had to slog through that extra content as well. The final level requires you to fight 2 bosses in a row with no checkpoint in between. So you better get used to fighting Dan. Oh, whoops, spoilers, sorry. Again, it's grinding attempts and trying to get lucky and dealing with the game's absurd level of bullshit. The last boss fight requires you to dodge grenades and avoid a one-hit kill laser and finally getting on a turret. It sucks. Everything about it was horrible, and it was so long and drawn out for no fucking reason. My brother and I took great pride in getting really long-range headshots in the beginning of the game. The enemies have a really satisfying with a red flash when they get hit in the head. I'll show you a slew of them just for fun.
At least things can't get any worse. At least things can't get any worse.
Oh my god, those will never not be funny. Holy shit. Is it wrong of me to want more of Cecil shooting people in the head? Because that shit's fucking hilarious. The cutscenes are an 11 out of 10 as far as I'm concerned. They're awful, but are consistently entertaining. I'll just show you a few of the really stupid ones here.
Accurate?
Well, how's it look?
It won't open. I think they've changed the code.
I think you're right, Jean-Luc.
Tom, it's good to see you, man.
May I? Yes, they've changed it all right.
Well, this is a surprise. Just what are we paying those guys upstairs for anyway? I don't remember sending you an invitation, kid.
Throw down your weapon and lay face down on the floor. Do it! Now!
Such poor manners. That's the problem with people today. No respect. You're gonna regret this, kid. You really are. Not too shabby. Of course, you won't live much longer, but it was fun while it lasted.
Stop right there!
You've beaten me. But I can't let you through. I may die here, but I'm gonna complete my duty.
What?
I'm strongly considering uploading a curated version of this playthrough with all the cutscenes included, where I can do an extended critique of the individual levels and the abundant problems with the game. But I probably won't because I just hate Winback that much. So the cutscenes are pretty damn funny, but the rest of the game, not so much. I would recommend you watch the cutscenes because they are quite entertaining, but you can safely skip the game as far as I'm concerned.
It's all my fault.
So what made Winback fun for me in the beginning was playing it with my brother. The second he left, it was a total downward spiral. It was a horrible experience, especially since I had to do the more difficult half by myself, with no coaching or encouragement. The first half isn't so bad, but the second is just insane. It's frustrating, it's boring to die and repeat the same sections again and again and again, and it's never consistently fun. You're grinding attempts and memorizing the layouts of when and where enemies will spawn. I felt like I was living in Edge of Tomorrow. Even after spending tons of attempts and time with it, there was never any satisfaction with clearing a stage. It always felt like I was crawling through mud, only to reach a brand new trench of mud, but this one also had glass shards in it. Honestly, there is so much wrong with Winback, I don't even know where to begin to try to fix it. If you reduce the damage Jean-Luc took by 50%, it would still probably be fucking difficult and frustrating. You could cut Winback in half and it would still have horrendous pacing. A lot of my proposed changes would be related to casualization, honestly. Gun damage is incredibly inconsistent. Sometimes it takes you 3 shots to take out an enemy, other times it's a whole magazine of doing the same body shots. It doesn't make any sense. It'd be nice if you had cursor memory, so if you went behind cover, your crosshair would stay in the same location when you popped out again. That would alleviate a lot of the problems with the long-range shooting you're required to do. I talked about it before, but that's one of the key components of a cover shooter, is that you can aim behind cover, pop out, do a micro adjustment, and shoot. You can't do that in Winback. God forbid you do the slow jump out too. Who decided that was a good idea? Who put that in? It's just terrible. I mentioned it already with levels, but make boss fights individual levels. Throwing a boss fight randomly in an already long level is unacceptable as far as I'm concerned, especially after the precedent set in the beginning of the game where bosses are their own levels. There is just too many fucking soldiers to slog through. Thousands, literally thousands dead at the end of my playthrough. That's genocide levels of death. You know, granted, it's on the lower end of a genocide, but it still counts. Going through a level fighting tons of enemies, being forced to backtrack and fight more enemies, go the long way around and fight even more enemies does nothing but bloat the length of the game for no reason. This is a game that probably just didn't even need to exist. This was an SD remaster before the days of the HD remaster. Taking the game probably almost verbatim from the N64 release was a mistake. They had an opportunity to cut things out, shorten things, make checkpoints more forgiving, make med packs a full heal. They just pushed this out as a budget title and called it a day. I'm just so done. I hate thinking about this game. If someone told me Winback Covert Operations was the only game I could ever play again, I'd be finding myself a new hobby. It starts alright, and dare I say it, enjoyable, but at the 2-hour mark it really starts to grate on your nerves and you're not even a fifth of the way done at that point. At stage 20 I was totally done with it, but there was another 11 levels to get through. You backtrack so many times through the same areas that it feels like everything you're doing is worthless. I get this was a limitation of the N64 cart's storage capacity, but it's still horrible, especially when the PS2 did not have those same limitations. The entire game was a grind. The only redeeming qualities are the laughable cutscenes, but to get those you need to slog through the insultingly long levels with a horrible checkpoint system and gunfights that feel like a total crapshoot. It is by far and wide the most difficult and frustrating game I've played on WTTB so far. I'm glad I'm done with it, and I will never replay Winback Covert Operations on the PS2 ever again. In terms of just cover shooters, you have so many better options. I don't even like Uncharted, but I would pick Uncharted any day of the week over this. I would even play The Order 1886 over this, because at least it's fucking short. Do yourself a favor, and forget this game exists. It's horrible. Horrible game. Koei Tecmo should be ashamed of themselves.